What's up, Super Fam? My name is Battery CEO and the Homely Sensei Finito, and welcome to another pop culture news update where we cover all things Marvel and everything pop culture.
Yes, man. And on today's episode of Marvel Bros, we're super pumped. We're going to be reviewing and discussing Wanda Vision episode 4. It was freaking amazing. It was wild. It was a game changer, definitely.
It was wild. And before that, please make sure to follow us on all of our social medias at Marvel Bros 23, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and our YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out that where we upload regularly.
And also, just make sure you can also check out this video right now live on our website, www.marvelbros.com, where you can also purchase our merchandise, you can donate, and you can join our Discord at the top right-hand corner.
Plus, all of our pop culture news updates are now available on Google Podcast and Spotify. So go check that out.
Yes, most definitely make sure you check that out. So we're just gonna dive head first into this, yo. So obviously this episode was amazing. This episode was freaking amazing to say the least, yo. In the very beginning moments of this episode, it was game changing already, bro. Like we were like, you know, we've been watching all these past episodes on Disney Plus's group watch feature, but for this episode, you know, we were together, and it was amazing. You know, like literally as the episode is coming on, Battery is like, "Bro, I wonder if Monica Rambeau survived the snap."
Literally, like
as soon as it starts.
And then, like, we just see her coming together, and I'm like, wait, what's happening? And then I was just so confused. And then, like, you were like, yo, that's your answer to your question. And I was like,
what? I was like, yo, it just answered your question in real time. You asked if she survived the snap, and we see that she literally did not.
The very second I asked that question, that happened. And I was like, oh my God.
We were so mind blown. I was like, bro, this is really happening. This is really happening, and this is amazing. That was awesome. Just to start it off. So we started off, and Monica is waking up, and as she comes back, and whatever you want to rematerializes, she's running out of the room she was in beforehand with people all around her materializing at the same time. And it was wild. It was wild to see, because the only time we've seen anything else like this was in Spider-Man Far From Home, was when we seen all of the people come back at the school. Yeah. So this is the first time we've ever seen anything like this. And so she's in the hospital, and this is
another thing is that's what I wanted to see in Spider-Man Far From Home. And we didn't see that. This was so cool.
Yeah.
And it just like blew our mind, like that this episode started out like this, and we were just kind of like, what is happening right now?
Is this serious? Is this real? And it was just like, yo, what's happening? And then obviously right off the bat, we're kind of wondering, who is she in this hospital trying to like in the first place for it? And I believe you said it from the jump, like it's her mom, like before we knew anything. So then we see her run to the desk, and she's like, yo, where is Maria? And we're like, oh, well, there we go. You know what I mean? It's her mom, definitely. But I mean, to me, it was so much information to kind of just take on. Yes, the process at the beginning, bro. Like, it was like, what does this mean? You know what I mean?
She didn't even know what was happening, and like for her, like
to her, she blinked. Yeah,
but she thought they took a nap. Actually, I believe. And the doctor just like, yo, like your mom. She passed. Spoilers, by the way.
Spoilers. Oh, big spoilers throughout this entire thing. It's big spoilers.
Yes. Your mom passed away 3 years ago, which means her mom survived 2 years after the snap.
Yes.
And so Monica Rambeau's only been gone for all 5. So this is huge.
Because the events of Infinity War to Endgame was a 5-year time period. Yep. So essentially what we're seeing right now is immediately after Incredible Hulk snaps.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken, it's like immediately after he snaps and brings everyone back. And then we're right here. Like, this is what happens on set. And if you guys have been with us for a while, then you know that this is exactly what we said we wanted from these Disney Plus shows. For like, we wanted is like no matter what happens in the show, we need to see the events of the decimation happening and how it affected these people. Mm-hmm. And that is what I'm going to be honest. I did not expect to see that at all.
I didn't expect to see that at all. Like, I just wasn't. I wasn't ready for it. I don't think any of us were ready for that.
Yeah, and we were shitting bricks.
Yeah, we were just kind of like, "What is happening?" And then like just to see everyone else pop in and
everyone's just like rematerializing.
Doctors are freaking out because like, "Oh my god, people are coming back from."
This is all the people that were here in the hospital 5 years ago, right now. So it's like, man. And then I'm pretty sure they don't realize that this is happening literally everywhere, not only on Earth, but in the entire universe, right now. So, and once again, this is something interesting to think about is what happened to all these people that were in planes at this time. I mean, we talked about that. I swear we talked about that.
I'm also kind of thinking about what happened. Like, what about the food supply? You know what I mean?
Oh, that's true because it was literally 5 years. It's been rationed for half of the amount.
Everyone comes back and it's like, "Yo, we're out of food. Like, how we?
We're out of everything."
Unless you like farmers just produced more and more for no reason.
Well, I mean, no doubt there would be a surplus of food because of the lack of people.
That's true.
I mean. Maybe not enough to, you know what I'm saying?
I'm curious to see, like, if in the MCU, like, there's people taking advantage of all this free land because these people are gone.
Maybe that's insert Doctor Doom. Maybe that's what he did.
Maybe
in the light of maybe in a certain area, a lot of dictators disappeared.
Yeah,
and he was like,
"Yo, this is my chance.
I don't mind if I do. Yeah.
Let's just slide right in there."
And then everyone comes back. So what does he have to do? Start a war between Atlantis and Wakanda in order to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's gonna be wild.
I mean, it makes sense. But coming back to the amazing show, and we're still like 2 minutes in.
Yeah, this
right
is 2 minutes
now.
in. Like,
we're barely at the Marvel Studios intro card.
But moving forward, I believe it just shows. Doesn't it have Monica coming in to Sword headquarters?
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, she's coming into Sword headquarters, and we're still like back in time. And as she's walking into Sword headquarters, we see like televisions plastered everywhere, and each television is obviously it's all talking about the blip, which is I think the worst name that they could have came up.
I don't know why they called it that. Like what? Like
there was like the
decimation,
like the decimation, but decimation doesn't even mean half. It means like a quarter of. Like that's what the actual mathematical term of decimation is.
Okay,
it's like a quarter of something. Yeah, it doesn't actually mean half.
Okay,
so that actually doesn't make sense twice. But yeah, I mean that's. I mean, still, she comes in and she tries to use her card and it doesn't work because she's been gone for 5 years. So with her being gone for 5 years, it's like, man, what's really going on?
Yep.
She thinks she's like trying to start off right where everything left off. But that's not.
Yeah, she comes in expecting her card to work, and then like security's like, "Yo, what are you doing?" And she's like, "Oh, I work here." It's like, "Well, if your card's not working, it means you're not working here." And then I'm like, "Oh, what's this?"
I was like,
"What's
dang.
this hate coming from?" Like, doesn't he know that people just came back?
Maybe that's why he's so. I mean,
I'm curious as to how far into time it was that she got brought back versus her going into show. Because like this, obviously,
to me it seems like this is immediately after.
Some time.
I don't think so. I think this has been. I think this is immediately after because I mean, yes, the blip would still be all over the television, but to me, this is like as soon as she's leaving the hospital. You know what I mean?
Well, because think about it. Because Wanda is technically fighting Thanos and all of them. If that's you know what I mean? So this has to be a little bit of time.
No,
but not too far ahead, I'm assuming.
Because I mean, no, I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
We got like maybe 2 weeks after.
It shouldn't have been that far.
It can't be that long because we already know that the events of Wanda Vision are like picking up directly after, like Endgame. So maybe. I think like maybe this is happening I feel like this is like immediately after still. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Because where she's at, maybe to drive to where she has to go or to fly. Doesn't she take a flight maybe to where she has to go?
That is true. There was some time.
I think there's
I don't know how
time
much
from
time
here
that was.
to there, not from there to there. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So from the hospital to when we see her walking in Sword, I think that's like maybe a day. Yeah. Maybe her mom, maybe it's like Thursday she's at the hospital, Friday she shows up at shift. Friday morning. Yeah. And then maybe a week goes by possibly, and then she's out there. But even seems...
I could see that.
You know what I mean?
I mean, it would make sense.
Yeah. But even then, it doesn't seem like it was that long because it kind of seems like Wanda immediately made that little
leap.
That little leap. Like, she dipped immediately afterwards. Like, you know what I'm saying?
She must have been so depressed.
She must have been so depressed and heartbroken, bro. Like, all the people came back except for
Vision.
Yeah. Because think about they have the funeral when they have the funeral for Iron Man.
Was she there?
Yeah, she was there.
Okay.
Everyone was there at that time. So
I kind of wish she wasn't there. That would have made more sense. You know what I mean? Like for story wise, I feel like maybe she shouldn't have been there. But
because she was doing this.
Yeah.
Yes, I understand. But I think because literally, bro, it kind of seems like they do shit immediately after. If we take into consideration Avengers, the first Avengers, they went and had shawarma immediately after whooping ass. You know what I'm saying? So it would make sense that maybe this is like Endgame. They defeat Thanos on Wednesday. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so they defeat Thanos on Wednesday. No, it can't be. It got to be Thursday because that's when she came back. Yeah. You know what I mean? So they defeat him on Thursday. The next day is Friday. They have the funeral. So at the same time they're having the funeral is when she's walking in the Sword.
Would they have the funeral the day after something like that happens, though?
Probably, yeah.
Maybe within a week, maybe?
Man, I don't know. I can see a week, but, like, we know he's gone. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have anything to get in order. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, you know I'm just thinking because, like, they have Ross there. They have the kid from Iron Man 3.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, so they had to somehow rally all these people to get there and plan everything out within a day. You know what I mean? So there had to be at least a small amount of time.
Like a week window. But still, we're talking about Iron Man. He has like private jets and stuff to fly people in a moment's notice at the same time. Not to mention, we don't know if all these people were there already, you know? Because bro was a grown man, so he could have been working in New York with Iron Man. He could already be, you know what I mean? We don't know. He could be a part of Sword or something. Yeah. I don't know, man. But right here is where we get to the point of what's really what's going on in the MCU. I guess that's the biggest question of this episode is what the hell is going on? You know what I mean? It's like, where does this take place? Like, we're making all this speculation, but it's because we're not inherently sure of what's going on. It's like we see these events taking place, but we don't know when, and we know where, but it's like, why is you know what I mean?
This episode answered a lot of questions, and also like this is something we talked about while we're watching it. This episode catered to the people that aren't MCU fans, and helped them understand why everything is happening the way it is.
Definitely.
Obviously, for us fans, you know, we understand how the MCU works, how Kevin Feige and all them work. So we're picking out all the small little Wanda. Easter eggs. We understand Wanda, what she's been through, the pain, and this episode kind of made everything connect. And so moving forward,
no, that's really true. It did give everything a very cohesive feel to it because we were very unsure as to how Monica Rambeau got into this reality. So this also helped that too with like, you know, kind of letting us know what's going on. Like she didn't go in here voluntarily, anything like that. You know,
she was just a little too curious. Too curious. Too curious.
Curiosity killed the cat, you know.
But before we get to that, she gets to the Sword headquarters. Yeah. She's going through. She's like, oh, I'm sorry. Like I used to work here, and then I believe an old colleague of her. I don't know his name, but he's like the director of Sword at this particular location. And he brings her down this hallway. While we're doing that, we see her mom on the wall. Monica Photon Ramboa.
Yeah.
And
Maria.
then
She's Monica.
Maria, yes.
Yeah.
And then while she's going through the hall, they're just talking, and he's like, "Hey, you know what? Let me just get the awkwardness out of the air. It's like it should have been you in charge, but
you weren't here.
You weren't here.
You were blipped.
You were blipped." And she's like, "I know. I understand. It should be you in this desk because her mom was the one."
And something that we see, to me, that's very apparent, though, is if you watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I've just started doing, is you see that really these agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and now S.W.O.R.D., they have very strong ties to like what they believe in within this rank and justice system. You know what I mean? Like, even though she knows she should be the director, she doesn't take it personally. She's just like, you're the director, though, so what are my orders? You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's something that I just kind of like to see that the MCU capitalizes on from the show, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., because I'm still in the beginning of it. So seeing how Coulson is right now and how he's very how Monica was, very similar to how all agents are, including Maria Hill. They're all that kind of hey, what are my orders? What do we need to do? And that's that's basically how Monica is. Yeah. And then amongst that, that's when she gets the orders that I think the FBI is requesting backup, basically, because they don't know for a missing persons case.
Something's happening.
Yeah, and that's all basically the director tells her is that there's a missing persons case, and then she drives down, and when she pulls up, where does she pull up to?
She pulls up to Westview.
Good old Westview.
Which is the said town where Wanda and Vision are at.
Yes. But this is modern day, though.
Modern day. So this doesn't look like anything so
that
far.
We've seen, yeah.
And she meets with, this is Chen, right?
Woo. Agent Woo. Yeah. Jimmy Woo.
She meets up with Jimmy Woo.
From Ant-Man. The Ant-Man movie.
And he's kind of like, okay, she's like, what's going on? She's like, well, something crazy is going on. Let me introduce you to these officers, right? And then like, these officers like, hey, like, this is Eastview. And then everyone's kind of like,
yeah. There's like, there's no such thing as Westview.
This is Westview. What are you talking about? And it's like, yeah, there's no such thing.
Yeah.
And
at this point, to me, I was like, man, Wanda's
she's
powerful. Her powers do not only, and it shows more apparent later in the episode, but her powers don't only just affect what we see in this, like in her pocket dimension that she has created. Yeah. It also affects things on the outside. And this is what we see from the police because they're like, yo,
what are you talking about?
Westview. There is no Westview. This is Eastview. And they're literally standing right next to a sign that says Westview, though. Yep. So it's like, man, Wanda's powers are super. That's all I could think of. Is like, Wanda is a powerhouse. That's all I could think of right at that point.
Yep. And then from here, Wu just kind of talks about
the police disappeared.
Did they disappear?
They disappeared. The police disappeared. They drove into the bubble and disappeared. Look, they're there. They're there 1 second. They get in the car, and then the car disappears. Look, the door closes. Boom. The scene changes.
They could have just flipped, possibly, but
it looks back.
They might have just drove straight through.
Bruh, they drove into the city, and they disappeared, bro.
We're actually...
we're watching it as we're talking about it. Look, it's gone. They're gone, bro. They're gone.
They're gone.
Why would they flip it?
I don't know.
Exactly.
Because technically they're like, oh yeah, we're from Eastview.
And Eastview would be right there then. What? If they flipped it, then that's the explanation. But, man, that's wild to see in real lifetime.
From there, though, they leave. Officers leave, right?
Yeah, the officers leave.
And then now they're just kind of, okay, what are we going to do? And then Monica's like, hey, I have a drone. So they pull out this drone, which is basically the modern version of the chopper we see in episode 1 or 2? Two.
Yeah.
The chopper that Wanda had found in the bush. This is that drone.
And, well, this is kind of what I'm thinking is maybe that's not, I don't know if that was that drone. I'm kind of thinking that all the planes that were flying Because they kept sending drones in, remember?
They did keep sending
I think
drones.
all of those drones were the banging that she was hearing throughout that entire episode of 2.
Ooh, that could have been it.
You know what I mean? Like the first one was her just flying it through. So that was the first bang that she heard. And then the second bang was the second one that we seen fly through. You know what I mean? And each bang proceeded up to that one helicopter that we saw. And then we don't see another one go in. And the next thing that we see is what later in the episode of the beekeeper.
Yep.
So at least that's how that's what I see. So following along with how the episode goes, Monica goes up. She sends the helicopter that Battery was talking about into the little bubble that they see.
She starts tripping.
It makes like a television aura. She goes up to it. What's up with it, Emil? Thanks for the comment, man. Make sure you drop a like and a share on the stream. It helps out a lot around here. So she goes up to this bubble, and when she goes to this bubble, she like starts to touch it, and once she touches it, she basically just gets sucked into the pocket universe that Wanda has created. Yep. And I think that's where we see her for the first time in the show in that second episode, I think it is. Yep. But from there, we immediately go to the Doctor from the Thor movies. Yep. I cannot think of her name.
I can't think of her name either. But her and a couple other scientists are in this vehicle, and it's actually a pretty funny moment because she's kind of like, "Hey, who are you guys?" And then like obviously the High Stranger's like, "We're not supposed to be talking about." And then she's like, "Okay,
you're the Boy Scout.
You're the Boy Scout. Hey, what about you?" And like they all say her name, and then he's like, "Hey, I'm a
chemical biologist."
He's like, "No one cares." And then they leave, and then like, it was cool because everything's all set up. Everyone's there, and I'm like, "Yo, this is like some serious Godzilla vibes."
Yeah, real Godzilla vibes. Like, they were literally right outside of Westview, and they have essentially set up like a freaking entire surveillance camp. And this surveillance camp is like it's gave me vibes from Thor when they found his hammer and they had the entire thing.
It's very similar,
shut down around it. Those were basically the vibes of what was going on. Is that hey, this is we don't know what this is, so we're gonna set up a perimeter around it until we can figure out what's going on. And that gave me big S.H.I.E.L.D. vibes. So I don't know what goes on. I'm new to Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so I'm not sure if they get reestablished within the MCU at some point. But S.W.O.R.D. seems to be that type of presence right now in the MCU. Is
definitely
the S.H.I.E.L.D. presence of, man, if we don't know what this is, call these guys.
Yep.
But at this point, we just see, I can't think of her name. I think she's in like every Thor movie except Ragnarok.
Yeah, I believe so, possibly.
She's
in the first for sure, second maybe.
Let me see. Let me just give it a Google real quick. Yeah,
but she comes in and she's basically kind of starts doing tests, and she starts looking at her gauges and everything like that, and she finds out that there's some sort of radiation coming off of this biodome, I guess.
Darcy Lewis. Darcy. Yeah.
Okay.
Darcy.
Okay. And then she finds out that it's very similar to what you might see on a TV. So she then tells the security dudes, "Hey, give me the oldest TV
before
you can."
she says that the energy is actually
You're
similar to the energy of the Big Bang. So that was like, bruh, Wanda is
wild.
A powerhouse. That the fact that she can create something with the energy of the Big Bang, that just means that, her energies are they stem from the freaking universe. You know what I mean? And that is actually something that we hear Agent Wu say is like, so the universe wanted to make a television sitcom with two superheroes, and it's like, well, no. We know what's going on. Well, if you're a Marvel fan, then you really know what's going on. You have an idea of like what. Yeah, you know that
what's kind of happening.
You know what's happening right now. So from here, what happens next?
So from here, they bring in, or from here, we know they don't get the TV. She asked for an old TV, right?
Yeah,
and then from there. It doesn't show her get the TV right away. We then transition to seeing a dude in a hazmat suit getting ready to go underground to go through the bubble, which is the same dude who comes out of the sewer wearing a beehive suit.
Yeah, because
Which-
I don't think they know that. They're unaware if the bubble goes as far down as it does up.
Yeah.
They don't know if it's like a bubble
Yep.
or if it's a dome type of thing.
And it actually does go underground. We actually see it.
Yeah. As he's crawling through this underground
like
sewer
pipe
plumbing.
or something,
Like
that.
plumbing area.
From there, though, once he goes down, we go back to the lab where we see Kate Denning's character.
Oh yeah, big spoilers, Emil. I think it actually says that in the thing too.
Yes, we have a lot of spoilers to talk about.
Big spoilers, yeah.
And then she pulls out this weird like computer tower thing with a small circle, and she can kind of see an image.
Mm-hmm.
So
she's like, "Is that?"
Yeah, she's like, "Is that
Wanda?
Is that Wanda?" But from there, what happens?
Well, after this, we see the beekeeper dude go into this tunnel, and I believe Jimmy Woo is talking to the agent that is telling him to go down, and he's like, "Yo, bro, we don't know if this goes down as far as it goes over," and he's like, "Well, we don't know, so we're gonna do it anyway.
Yeah, we just don't know."
So he sends him under, and the guy starts crawling, and then it cuts back to them going inside. And as he's crawling under, things start to kind of change. You can see him go through the actual, like the television aura that there is. And then through this aura, his hazmat suit transforms into a beekeeper suit, like Battery had said.
Yep.
And as it transforms into the battery suit, he has a rope tied to him. And I was like, yo, did that rope just turn into a jump rope? Like, as we're watching it turns into a jump rope. So it's really letting you know how powerful Wanda is. The fact that anything that crosses this bounds is one, automatically going to be implemented into her quote unquote reality that she has made. And two, we don't really know what happens to them after that because they're not supposed to be there.
It didn't really show what happens to him either after he gets rewinded, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So we go back to Darcy, and she's just basically, they're watching. Everyone in this Sword headquarters type thing is watching the Wanda Vision show.
Yep. And
we actually get to see that they are watching it from basically the perspective that we have been watching episode 1, 2, and 3 of WandaVision.
Yep.
So like Battery had said earlier, also, a lot of the people who were very frustrated and angered with the first 3 episodes thinking that this wasn't an MCU extravaganza. This kind of lets you know that it is an MCU extravaganza to like the top peak of what that means.
Definitely does.
So they basically get to watch the episodes, sprawl out as we have seen. But there are a few minor details that they actually don't get to see. And these would be the moments that we have described as horror moments in this show.
The moments where Wanda kind of snaps out of it and she's like, I don't like this, I'm going to change it up.
When everyone snaps out.
And it's just like a static rewind, and then and then it goes to normal for them. But for us, we actually saw it. And that was really cool to actually see that they don't get to see what we got to see, which is pretty cool.
I really like that. Yeah. And if we haven't said it yet, at this time, this is where we see that at the end of episode 1, it is actually Darcy Lewis who is watching the TV at that end type of credit scene thing. So from here, they start trying to figure out who each character and person is, like in the show that correlates to the real life. So they're taking their WandaVision character and they are connecting them to their reality counterpart. So they know what's going on. And amongst this, they're writing a lot of good questions, I think, on this whiteboard, kind of trying to figure out what's going on. And this is where we see that the energy field around Westview is actually in the shape of a hexagon. And if you know the MCU, then you know that hexagons they basically mean, they have a big meaning of what's going on.
Oh, so that's even more.
Yeah, just a couple of the questions that they have on this board is there's a 5-mile radius around Westview, I believe.
That is there.
Why hexagonal shape?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it a sitcom? So that's a really good question. Same time and space. That's a question as well. Is Vision alive?
This is a really. I think
that's the best question from. I think that's the biggest question almost everyone has.
I think so
that
too.
is watching WandaVision. Is Vision currently alive?
Yes. And
what do you? Before we move on, what do you actually think is the answer to that question?
I want to say. I want to talk about what I saw at the end of the episode.
Okay, all right, okay. So you want to save that for then? Okay, we'll save that. We'll save that question for the end. Then.
But there's another part on the board that says, "Who's behind this?" And it says scrolls, which means there's good and there's bad scrolls. Because
I mean, I think this is a little bit more than that. I think to me it means that scrolls are something that are known by the FBI.
Guy, maybe
no, like you know what I mean. The FBI knows who scrolls are.
Mm-hmm.
At least Jimmy Woo does.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? So if this is a scroll thing, like you're saying, why would they think this is a scroll thing?
I don't know. Something must have happened.
Exactly.
You would think because Sword works according to. Because according to what movie? Far From Home.
Let's look. Yeah, but if we know that Monica knows about scrolls, so of course scrolls would be on the board.
That's true. Maybe her mom believed they were always a real threat. Maybe.
Well, the first time she met them, they were a threat. They only became not a threat after the fact, you know.
But I'm saying, what if she never trusted them to begin with, regardless if they were kind of.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is she probably never did trust them. And Nick Fury probably never trusted them. He only trusted Talos and his wife. You know what I mean? That's probably
enough for him to play.
Well, no, because we see at the end of Far From Home, that's a whole scroll base, basically. Scroll and sword are one.
So this is the thing. I'm curious to see how the MCU is going to kind of explore. Jesus, that would be insane. I'm curious to see how they will explore the scrolls' involvement in all this. I think that'll be really interesting.
I hope that scrolls don't have a big implementation until we get to Fantastic Four down the road. So maybe they get to see the scrolls in everything as being the good guys, and they make the Fantastic Four kind of like a young type of thing, and we get them in the future. Well, not like super future, but we get them a little bit long, down the range once we already have scrolls established in the MCU as being good guys, and then we actually get to see them be bad guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we get to see the Hydra infestation, basically. We get to see that from the jump with Sword.
I mean, that'd be really cool because we have seen a lot of Hydra references in the series so far.
We've seen a lot of Hydra references.
So that would be a cool little implementation.
And that is something that we do see is that Sword sees the commercials the way that we see them. They're just not studying into them the way that we are.
And we talked about that. We're like, it kind of sucks. They didn't dig into the commercials more than how we did.
Yeah.
They would think, oh my gosh, Hydra. Are they back?
Because even at some point, they're just talking through the commercial. Darcy and Agent Wu, they're just talking through the commercial.
It doesn't even show them see the Hydra or Dr. Von Strucker.
Yeah.
But what happens moving forward?
Well, after they start connecting everybody to their real world counterparts, that was really hard for me to say because I kept thinking about Sword in my head. They see that Monica Rambeau is actually in this reality, or in this pocket dimension, and they're like,
"What is she doing?
What the heck is happening?" Yeah. And she's obviously a background character at first. And they even make note, the same way we made note, that she gets lines in a later episode. They're like, oh, she actually had something to say. And she talks about how she likes Wanda's pants. You know what I mean? And then that's when we see Darcy and then not Darcy, Dottie. Dottie. And then Darcy tells Agent Wu, like, yo, we can get a signal in there. So make sure you talk through the radio at the right time. So that, and then we see basically this entire episode is what's happening in the real world outside of Wanda's bubble, happening basically simultaneously.
That's pretty much what happens throughout the whole episode.
Yeah, like we basically see what's going on the real world. We see Agent Wu saying, Wanda, who's doing this to you, Wanda? In the real world, the same way we actually saw him doing it to her in the show world, I guess you could say. I guess the sitcom world.
Yeah.
And then we actually see that this is where we see for the first time that they don't see what we see. So where we saw Dottie break the glass and the radio explode and the blood come from Dottie's hand, they didn't see any of that
at all.
Yeah, so they don't really get the full
it's all but
horror
out.
effect. Yeah,
and so
the horror effects are edited out. Yes, yeah.
And so it's just like a regular sitcom to them with like a little glitch.
Almost like someone recorded over what happened.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they catch on about it later on. They're just kind of like, what? Like, this is like someone's controlling the series, or the show. And from there, we see Wu and what's the girl's name?
Darcy.
They're starting to kind of use the microphone, like you were saying, and then like it transitions to the beehive dude. Yeah. Going in through the bubble, and the rope that he's connected to becomes jump rope. And it's interesting too because we see the jump rope and color, and at the same time they bring up the rope that he's connected to. When they bring it up,
they're trying to bring him back.
He ain't on it no more. And it's just the colored jump rope, and they're kind of like, what?
What's happening?
And then from there, we see the beehive dude come up. Everything's a color, by the way, at this point. He's coming up. He's kind of like, okay, he's looking around. And then as he kind of stands up, you can kind of notice the tone of the color changing. We see Wanda Vision in the background, and it turns black and white. And then from there, we just hear say no. And then that's when
it kind of just stops. Like, we don't really see what happens from there. At this point, they have to actually update the TVs to make it match the present time of the 70s.
So it's now that there's color involved past that episode.
Which I really like.
This is episode 3 that they're kind of researching now, right?
Yeah, they're watching episode 3 at this point, and they're kind of going over what's happening. And we kind of see that almost everyone, all the sword agents, everybody is kind of invested
in the show. Yeah,
they're very invested in the show. They're like, yo, Wanda and Vision are having kids. Yep. Darcy asks Jimmy Woo a question, and he's like, yeah, man.
Yeah,
I thought about having a little Woo and getting him a little FBI badge. And she's like, bro, I just want to know if you wanted a chip. You know? It was some really good, funny moments. I just appreciated all the little steps they took to actually make us understand that, us as the viewers, understand that what we're watching, they're watching it too. So just as weird as it is to us, the viewer, it's just as weird to them being in the MCU watching these things take place like it's a sitcom. So a lot of the people that are like, what the heck, why is this a sitcom? Yeah. You know, it's like, yo, they're asking the same exact thing in the MCU. Why is this a sitcom? Yeah. So you're supposed to be as confused as you are. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of what we can take away from this, is we're supposed to be super duper confused. Yep. And at this point, this is where we see they're watching the show, and it's up to date in the 70s episode, the last episode where Wanda gives birth to the twins. If you have not seen it yet, that's what happens. Yep. Once again, this is big spoilers throughout this entire thing.
100% spoilers.
100% spoilers. Big fat spoiler remark on it. So they're watching it on the outside, and it glitches, and it skips that entire scene after Monica asks about Ultron. Yep. So they hear her ask about Ultron, and then Jimmy Woo's like, whoa, did she bring up have Ultron? We ever heard anything connected to our reality? And she's like, no, this is the first time. Yep. And then we see the ratios switch from a 16-16 to a 16:9. And then we see Wanda kind of like go in, and now we actually see the last moments of episode 3 but from Wanda's perspective,
From Wanda's
which is what
perspective.
I believe you.
Because in the last episode, what we saw was the perspective of Vision when the neighbors were telling him, like, "Yo, like you're
like she's not supposed to be here."
Yeah, and then, but now we're seeing it from Wanda's perspective.
And from that perspective, I will actually connect to that. Is that we see that at the same time, Wanda is figuring out that she doesn't belong is actually when the neighbors are saying she doesn't belong.
Yeah.
So once again, we see how powerful Wanda is.
Mm-hmm.
It's very similar to how the water broke in everyone's apartment when her water broke.
Yep.
So as she's figuring out and starting to have these doubts about Monica, the neighbors and the people in the town are also starting to doubt her, which is actually something that I never really put together until this episode of seeing her spaz out at the same time as they spaz out on the outside. But yeah, what do we see after we see her kind of put these realizations together?
So once you kind of sees these realizations, we see her throw Monica out. We see her literally get thrown through some walls, some bookcases, and then she gets thrown out. She goes to her baby. She's looking. She's kind of like, looking at her face. She's kind of like, "What have I done?" Mm-hmm. But at the same time, she's kind of like, "Somebody had to go."
Yeah, literally.
and then it transitions. We see Vision coming from the back. Then it transitions to Monica. She's kind of like, "Oh my gosh, what just happened?" She's getting surrounded by sword. Mm-hmm. And then we go back to the house. Again, this is from Wanda's perspective. Like, if you remember in the last episode, that's when Vision came in, she's like, "Oh," like, and she's like, she gets scared. Like, we don't know why she gets scared. But in this episode, this is from Wanda's vision. So
spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers. This is from Wanda's point of view. So when she turns and looks at Vision, we literally see him dead, but with his head, like part of his head missing.
We see the Vision that we left off from Infinity War. When Thanos freaking boom breaks the Mind Stone out of his head with his gigantic fingers.
Scared the shit out of us.
Scared the shit out of all of us.
But she looks down.
She's like, "Oh my god," because it terrified her.
Yeah, it terrified her. When she looked up, he was fine. Mm-hmm. And at this point, you can kind of tell Vision's getting a little sus. He's getting a little sus.
Yeah, Vision is big sus at this point. He's like, "Bro, what the hell is going on?"
He even throws a couple tests at her. He's like, "Like we can go wherever we want," and she's like, "No, we're home right here."
Yeah,
and
I really don't remember him asking that from the last episode.
I don't think we saw that.
Yeah, I don't think we saw that. That's what I'm saying. Like,
and so
we
see this look in his eye, like he's like, something's up.
Mm-hmm. And she's like he's like, "Yo, we can go wherever we want," and she goes, "No, we can't.
No, we can't,
because this is our home." You know what I mean? She tries to kind of cover it up, but when she says, "No, we can't," we can clearly see on Vision's face that he is not okay with that, and that he knows that this means something more than what she's saying.
Something's going on.
And as we have in every episode, at the end, we kind of get this last zoom in on Wanda and Vision, and then the episode kind of ends. But to me, I don't know if this was the same from the last episode.
Yeah,
because I don't remember this. Because in this, on this episode, when it ends, we see that they're both holding a twin, and then the episode ends, and I just don't remember episode 3 ending like that. But with episode 4 ending like that, we see Vision looking
really kind of like
Vision does a Deadpool. He looks directly at the camera. He looks directly at the camera, and he gives a very, very.
He's like, "Oh, this is happening right now. Like this is."
He knows something's wrong.
Something's wrong, and even when he sat next to Wanda with the babies, he looks like, up.
Look,
he's just kind of like,
"Look at that! Look at that face right there, bro." Look at that face.
Yeah, he's just like, what is happening?
He's looking directly at us.
And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about, how, what we think if he's really dead. And so what I think is happening is that Wanda is making Vision look like he's alive when it's really his body, his dead body, moving around. But because of her powers, what we see...
She's the puppet master.
Yeah, she's basically a puppet master. So I don't know if he's really alive, but... the body that, like, his dead body is really there. It's just that because of her powers, what we see is him alive.
Yeah.
And so that's why, like, when that moment when she threw out Monica Rambeau, she kind of snapped out of it. And she realized what's happening. It's like she's in reality. She looks at Vision. Oh my gosh! And my reality is he's dead, and so that's his body. And so when she looks down, she's
like putting it back together the same way she did with the wall.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden she looks up and he's fine. And so, what an episode again.
So with that being said, that means she's also doing magic to herself.
Yes.
And that is what is kind of causing a lot of the issues, is because she's causing herself. Mm-hmm. She's trying to reset her own brain. Mm-hmm. She's trying to make herself believe something that's not true, along with everyone else. So she's also taking part in the lie. Mm-hmm. And by that, she's brainwashing herself, making herself go crazy. Yep.
And this episode did, I think, a really good job of, like, last of us, we talked about how, bro, what if she's the villain? Yeah. And, like, we're not even thinking about, like, Mephisto's not even involved. It's just her being the main villain. Yeah. And, like, this episode, like, the way she looked and the way she kind of handled everything with Monica, so you're like, yeah, that might be what's happening.
And then I think that's kind of what even Monica says at the end of the episode. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
It's Wanda.
It's Wanda. She literally says, it's Wanda. It's Wanda.
What if she is being manipulated, though?
See, in the comic books, Wanda's kids are actually Mephisto's kids. Mm.
So you're saying Mephisto's Vision?
Mephisto isn't Vision. Mephisto just allowed Wanda to have his children because he needed somebody to do it. Mm. And that's where she ends up going crazy, is because Mephisto has somebody try to kill the children in order for them to return to the Hell Realm.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's kind of dark for Marvel.
That's pretty dark.
That's kind of dark for Marvel.
But then again,
look at what we're seeing.
I'm assuming it's gonna get pretty dark if we get the Grim Reaper, because we have yet to see Sparky, and it might have just been like. But then again, we haven't.
That's why the Grim Reaper gets called to harvest the kids' souls to bring them back to Mephisto.
We haven't seen that particular scene yet. We see in the trailer, so it might be next episode, maybe the episode after that. I don't know. Yeah. It looks like they might be getting a little altercation, possibly. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Vision and Wanda fighting though.
Yeah, because they're both powerful as shit.
Wanda's gonna win though. She beat him before.
I mean, she's gonna win because he's dead. So he's not even really there. So it doesn't really matter.
I don't know though.
She's the one animating him in the end. I mean, and that's something that to really talk about, is because he still obviously has free will, because he's figuring shit stuff. Like when he's not with her, he figures things out. Yeah. You know what I mean? He's kind of understanding what's going on, all the stuff. He's still working as Vision, but we also see him becoming very human at times. Yep. Especially with the last episode, with her having all the pregnancy pains.
What if, like, when they're fighting, she snaps out of it, and he just goes, like, his body goes back to the missing skull, and he's just died. Like, he's just like.
That's kind of what I'm expecting from one of these episodes, is like for the entire reality to come crashing down, and then literally we see what you just said. Like, we just see.
And boom, and then over, she's like, "What?" And
okay, can we just take a moment to really commend Marvel on the visual effects of this one, because
it looks really
the snap looked exactly like the snap did in the movies when they came back. You know what I mean? It looked exactly like that. It looked beautiful.
Just the Disney stuff, Disney Plus beautiful. Stuff in general looks really good. Like better than when I saw it in theaters, and they're years old. And I'm actually like,
and we're specifically talking about the Marvel content.
Yes,
we're not talking about everything that's on Disney Plus. This is not go to Artemis Fowl and move on. We are strictly talking about the Marvel content, because even like when we initially started watching this, we watched Marvel Legends, and every single thing they had in Marvel's Legends,
we were like, what? Like, is this the same movie? Like, what are we watching? But it looked really, really good. So
yeah, it did look really good.
But I'm really excited to see what they do. What do you think could happen next episode?
Man, in the next episode, well, I have I bought like 5 different pops, and these pops are in
Mhm.
like they're in a certain order.
Mhm.
So me and Christian, we assumed that this episode would have been the Halloween
The Halloween
episode.
episode, which is the one we're looking forward to. That
We're
episode.
really looking for the
But
Halloween.
the really kind of
the Halloween episode seems like exactly is the
just
one that's
kinda
going to
like,
give the
"Ha,
jab because
psych."
we have
not today.
Agatha. This is when that's when we see Agatha tell Vision.
Mhm. We're assuming
You're
that's
dead.
what Agatha tells.
Nah, that I know.
But I feel like
I
that's
know
what's happening.
Yeah, that's
So-
what we see from the trailers. It's Halloween. He flies in the air. He flies down. He's talking to Agatha. She's like, "You're dead," and she does that creepy witch
Creepy
laugh. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm really hoping. Man, this episode was amazing. It really makes up for the last episode.
Yeah.
And to me, I think Disney always knew that they were going to put episodes 1 and 2 out at the same time.
Yep.
So those episodes are supposed to be taking as like a one episode. So
Mhm.
if you take episode 1 and 2 as episode 1 and then episode 3 as episode 2, if you kind of look at it like that, you kind of have a better appreciation for.
I feel like they
for
should have
these
just combined the
episodes.
first 2 episodes. I feel like
Yes,
it would have made a little more
like
sense.
an hour special type thing.
Mhm. It would have gotten a lot less flack from all the kind of like, I guess you could say, non-hardcore MCU fans.
Yeah.
Because obviously a lot of the hardcore MCU fans definitely kind of like, yo, this show's trash.
Yeah.
They just don't understand it. And like I said before, this episode helped combine the lines and really kind of help make sure people that aren't familiar with the MCU kind of help make sense of what's happening in the show.
With the logic that you just implemented as well, how would you have liked to see this be a 3-part miniseries with each episode, the first 2 episodes being an hour, and then the last episode being an hour and a half? 3-part miniseries, WandaVision. How would you felt about that?
I would appreciate that.
You would have.
I don't know. You know, with a series like this,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the last episode, it's got to be intense.
Oh yeah.
So I'm assuming maybe 1 episode's an hour.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like maybe the last episode or at some point something big happens. The big MCU moment that we're all waiting for in this show. Maybe, unless they literally compact it within 30 minutes. Like it's just like from start to end, it just goes, you know?
Yeah. No,
And
that's kind of the vibes that I think they're going to go
And it
with.
might be that they end an episode off like right before something's about to go down and just pick up right from there until the very end. And so that might be and then like the series will probably end on a cliffhanger. And then like it'll continue through Falcon and the Soldier.
It's probably going to that particular. Okay, so now that I see what WandaVision has done, I feel like each one of these shows, okay, now hear me out right now, right?
Okay.
Each one of these shows are going to take place in the exact same time period, okay? WandaVision, Loki, Falcon and Winter Soldier. All of these shows take place in a like 30-day time period after Avengers Endgame, okay? And each one of these parts are taking part simultaneously for one, and then they are all also leading to Doctor Strange. Okay. So each one of these is like a sub-comic leading into the big comic, which is Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness.
I mean, that'd be. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna sneeze.
You got a sneeze? You got a big one?
That kind of goes into what we were talking about. Like, when do we think Doctor Strange is going to appear in WandaVision? Yeah, that's some of the rumors that we reported back a couple months, maybe even a year ago. Yeah, we talked about his involvement in this show, at least for an appearance.
I remember that.
And with everything going down the way that this episode showed, especially after this episode, I think they might want to bring in him to kind of figure some stuff out,
because that's the closest thing to her powers that they know.
And I'm assuming he can kind of like mitigate and not be under her spell or whatever you can do, like with like his manipulation of magic. But with that said, it might not be Wanda. But after this episode, it clearly is Wanda.
It might not be magic.
And it might not be magic. It might be.
It's just her manipulating actual reality. I don't think magic can stop you from getting actual reality manipulated on you. Because even when in the comic books, when she does that thing, he's affected. The only one that's not affected is Wolverine.
That's true.
Everybody is affected, even Doctor Strange. So her powers are unfathomable when it comes to the likes of magic. That is, you know.
It's interesting you said that, because at the beginning of the episode, we were wondering why the police officers didn't know what Westview was, but the others did.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that Wolverine connection you just had kind of has a little something to do with. I don't know.
The Wolverine connection to me is Monica. Monica is the Wolverine connection. That's why she knew about the Ultron thing. You know what I mean? Is because Monica wasn't supposed to be there.
Yeah.
You know, so. Man, but this episode was a great episode. It was, man, this is the best filler episode I've ever seen in my life.
It was really good. It made the whole series worth it.
Yes.
So far, granted, we've kind of loved what they've been doing so far. Granted, last episode was a little disappointing, but this episode kind of brought everything together, and it's amazing.
Yeah, because the last episode was all about her pregnancy. So yeah, that was a little bit disappointing.
There was a lot of questions that needed to be answered that they kind of created last episode, but answered in this one. So that was really cool. I like how they did that.
Yeah, and they answered a lot more questions that we didn't even have that pertain. Like they answered questions that pertain to the MCU.
Yep.
That didn't even pertain to Wanda Vision itself with this episode.
Specifically.
Yeah, specifically. Yeah, that was awesome.
And yeah, with that said, don't forget, please make sure to follow us on all of our social medias at MarvelBros23, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also, don't forget to check out our YouTube channel where we post regularly.
That's right. And this episode is also being streamed live right now to our website, www.marvelbros.com, where you can purchase our merchandise, and you can also donate, with all proceeds going straight to Marvel Bros and helping what we do out here for you guys. You know what I'm saying? So make sure you tune in there. And on our website at the top right-hand corner, you can join our Discord, as well as in the description below this video. We have our Discord there too. Make sure you join our Discord. We have awesome conversations, and we're probably going to talk about some WandaVision tomorrow, the next day, and every single day leading up until next Thursday.
During the week, we just kind of come up with stuff.
What happens if this happens?
Yeah.
We go back and watch the episodes and be like, bro, did you see this part? I didn't see this. Did you see that? Join the conversation. Show us some stuff that you might have seen. And make sure you drop a like and share on this video. And tune in to the next episode.
Yep. Catch you guys later.
Excelsior.
Thanks. All of Marvel Bros. Pop culture news updates are now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. You can also watch Marvel Bros. Live every Sunday on Facebook.com, or you can watch them on YouTube, where we upload regularly. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at MarvelBros23 to keep up with all things Marvel and everything pop culture.